What is up, my friends? It is your host, Nick Anderson, also known as Amongst the Whiskey, and today we're going to be talking about all things American Single Malt. Yes, American Single Malt is finally a thing. After 52 long years, the US government is finally adding a new category of whiskey. American Single Malt has been added as a category by the TTB. As of December of 2024, the American Single Malt category is official. It's on the books with the TTB. Add that to the growing list of world malt whiskeys. Gone are the days of just Scotch and Irish whiskey being the only 100% malted barley whiskey producers of the world. There's Australian single malt producers now. But let's focus in and stay on the subject of American single malt. That's what we're here to really deep dive and explore, get a better understanding for what American single malt is, taste through some examples of American single malt, and taste through some Scotch single malt whiskeys, and even a Kentucky straight malt, so that we have some counterexamples for flavor profiles. We will see how they vary. How does American single malt categorize itself versus the category of Scotch single malt whiskey? These guys right here are definitely a leader in the pack for American single malt. There are many other distilleries doing fantastic things for the American single malt category. Cedar Ridge does a spectacular one, for example. I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all description for American single malt either. Each distillery is going to have their own style. Just because they're all made with 100% malted barley does not mean that malted barley is sourced from the same farms. Nor does it mean their malting process is the same distillery to distillery. Add in differences in cooperage and distillation equipment, and you're going to end up with wildly different whiskeys. We'll see some of that. I'll taste Jack Daniel's American Single Malt, a Tennessee distillery, against Westward American Single Malt, distilled in Portland, Oregon. Very different terroirs. So let's cue up a tasting. Okay, while we let our pores set up in their wee glens, we might as well do a little research on what the new ruling means for American Single Malt. What are the defining characteristics? Enter the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission. You can see ratification here at last. December 18th, 2024. The category has been defined. They're calling it the next big thing in whiskey. Let me know down in the comments. Do you agree with that statement? Here we go. Made from 100% malted barley. Nobody is surprised by that requirement. It just means the entire mash bill consists of that grain, malted barley, which is the same for all other world single malt whiskeys. 100% malted barley is the benchmark. I like this one. Distilled entirely at one distillery. Same thing for how Scotch single malt whiskey is defined. You can't call it a single malt if it wasn't produced by a single distillery. Next category here. Mashed, distilled, and matured in the United States of America. That makes perfect sense too. This is American single malt after all. I do love that they're very specific here though. Mashed, distilled, and aged, all in the United States of America. I think that's brilliant. Just cover your bases. Matured in oak casks of a capacity not exceeding 700 liters. Okay, interesting specification here. Quick Google, 700 liters is 185 gallons. I like that this is specific and a little more lenient. It makes it so that they can use larger wine butts or other kinds of wood vessels that don't have to be stuck with your standard bourbon barrel size, which is 53 gallons. Opens a lot of doors for really interesting maturation techniques here. I think this is good for the category. Ooh, I like this one. Distilled to no more than 160 proof. It's US proof, or 80% alcohol by volume. This is the exact same rule that bourbon has. Bourbon has to be distilled to no higher than 160 proof. What's interesting for bourbon, though, is that there are also barrel entry requirements. So barrel entry proof for bourbon has to be at 125 proof or lower. Oddly, I don't see a barrel entry proof requirement on this list. So I wonder, is that something that they need? And bottled at 80 United States proof or more, 40% alcohol by volume. This makes perfect sense too. This is also what bourbon follows. Bottle anything lower than that, you can't call it a bourbon whiskey. So in American whiskey, below 80, you start getting into a category called diluted whiskey. Nobody markets that crap. Landmark ruling from Steve Hawley, the president, and a lot of cool partners. Looks like ISC was a big supporter of the ASM movement, so that's great to see. All right, now we know about all the requirements that go into making American Single Malt now. So again, this is a recent ruling. The American Single Malts that we're going to taste were likely made in a way that is in accordance with the regulations that we just read. But because they weren't enacted yet, nobody was requiring them to follow them. So it was kind of like the Wild West for American Single Malt before this. People were producing it. A lot of distilleries were producing it. You'll find ones from the likes of Jim Beam. Maker's Mark produced one. Really, everybody tried their hand at American Single Malt early on. It'll be interesting to see which ones take off in 2025 and beyond. Lucky for you, I will have an article coming for amongstthewhiskey.com highlighting the best American Single Malt whiskeys right now. Some of them from this tasting might be on that list. So I will steer you the right direction if you continue to follow me and my whiskey opinion in this era that is just filled with a lot of loud voices. I hope that I can be a guiding light for your whiskey journey. If I am, consider liking this video, giving me a subscribe, drop me a nice comment. I love hearing from other whiskey enthusiasts that appreciate my point of view. So thank you for being here. All right, Nick, on with the whiskey. Let's go. Up first, we are going to be tasting the Jack Daniel's twice barreled special release American Single Malt. This was finished in an Oloroso sherry cask, bottled at a clean 106.5 proof. This was kind of a surprise from Jack Daniel's, I will be honest. But also, Jack Daniel's has been just on a tear with the innovative whiskey releases that they've been putting out. I love that they're leaning in on more rye, but I do also love that they went down the rabbit hole of American Single Malt. This is one I've already done a full review for. I will drop that link down in the description. But let's get on with a little hot take here. Ooh. Okay. This nose clearly benefits from that sherry influence, that Oloroso sherry barrel. Definitely has a lot of impact on this whiskey, so maturation is clearly going to be important for the American Single Malt category. Barrel aging, just like bourbon, is going to influence the final flavors that you'll get on your whiskey. Very nice. You get like a little peach ring going on here. You know those candy peach rings, the sugary candy peach rings? That's what this smells like. Plum, fig, nougat, really nice profile. Let's taste. Much like the nose, really good wine influence on this. You get a little bit of that Jack Daniel's banana note. If you're a longtime drinker of Jack Daniel's whiskey, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say that JD banana. It's definitely in there, but complemented perfectly by almost like a grilled peach and plum. Super oily, super viscous on the tongue. I love the mouthfeel on this pour. Gets bonus points for the mouthfeel with me for sure. Really nice whiskey. And of course, this is our first American Single Malt here. This was first released in 2022. They were ahead of their time. 2 years ahead of their time. Good linger on this one. The hug that is just embracing me right now is warm. It's got Christmas spices. This is just a perfect pour for the cold winter months. December through February, you'll find me sipping this. Second pour of the lineup is going to be our Single Malt Scotch whiskey. This is a signatory bottling of Glenlivet, 17 year. Oh, it's a 900 series cask. So this is casks 900828. Matured in a first fill Oloroso sherry butt. Perfect head to head for the JD versus the Glenlivet. Big question, will the Scotch beat out the American Single Malt? Let's find out. Okay, lovely nose here. Definitely is reaching deep for some local terroir, This isn't my first experience with this Glenlivet. I have not written a review on amongstthewhiskey.com of this one. And honestly, I'm not super experienced in the single malt Scotch whiskey category to begin with. I have had some spectacular examples thanks to eye-opening tastings that friends like Gregory Cloyd host for the Whiskey Legends group. So I've been introduced to some spectacular Scotch. That same group pointed me towards this release. Okay, on the nose. Oh yeah, we got a nice little buttercream frosting, some floral undertones. I almost get like a gardenia or a petunia kind of smell. Very nice, a little peppery. Oddly, I do not get as much of the Oloroso sherry as I did with the American Single Malt from JD. So yeah, definitely less of that sherry fruit creamy sweetness, but a little more distinct character out of this distillate. On to the taste. Ooh yeah, that is spectacular whiskey. That same buttercream frosting. Oh my gosh, I'm getting all of the like vanilla tones on this one. Mouthfeel is incredible, as was the Jack Daniel's American Single Malt. But this one just sticks in every little nook and cranny of my mouth. It's almost got like a raw cookie dough kind of taste to it. Yeah, really good whiskey there. It definitely is its own category. It tastes nothing like the Jack Daniel's American Single Malt. So, fans of single malt Scotch whiskey don't necessarily have a direct transition from their comfortable spirit that they're used to this new category of American Single Malt. That doesn't mean that American Single Malt isn't accessible or isn't drinkable. American Single Malt is definitely drinkable, as I've just made an example of with sipping of the Jack Daniel's American Single Malt. Delicious stuff. I do think there will be quite a few bad examples that come out as the category is young. People don't necessarily have the same level of experience that single malt Scotch whiskey producers have. So definitely keep an eye on reviews so you can know what is good and what is not. Glenlivet is very good. Up next in the lineup, we got the first of two Westward bottlings. This is their bottled in bond, distilled, matured, and bottled by Westward Distillery in Portland, Oregon. And of course, it being bottled in bond means it's bottled at 100 proof, no less than 4 years old. When I got the press release for this one, I believe it stated that this is a 7-year whiskey though, so they went above and beyond on the bottled in bond designation. This is another one that I've done a full review on, so that link will be in the description as well. On to the nose. My goodness, the volume on this pour is spectacular. Tons of fruit right away. Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm getting blood orange, almost like a pomegranate note. Super figgy, so jammy. It's like a raspberry jam. It is so thick and like resinous in the nose. Definitely a hint of like a pine bough. This is such a lovely nose. Wow. Coming off that Glenlivet, this is giving that Glenlivet a run for its money. Wow. I can't wait any longer. Let's taste. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Super dark, very fruity like the nose. This one has more plum, think raisin, a couple of dashes of bitters, a little grenadine. Wow. This is flavorful whiskey. There's like a chocolate tone in here, there's a little bit of coffee bean in here. The mouthfeel is super oily, super viscous. It's darker than the 17-year Glenlivet by a good margin. Yeah, I love that whiskey. Kudos to the Westward team on that one. And of course, here's our dark horse. We had to let Kentucky come and play. What's interesting for this one is that it is not a single malt at all. It is a Kentucky straight malt. What does that mean for the mash bill? That means 65% malt, 35% corn. These were distilled at Heaven Hill, and I was one of the first people to pick one of these barrels. Pablo brought the Rare Character brand to Massachusetts, and of course, my group, Mass Bourbon Alliance, and Liquor Junction partnered up and picked 2 of these 14-year exceptional Kentucky straight malts. 14 years and 5 months to be exact. They were part of the very legendary first run that released very early. I think there was an Uprocks article that had this as the #2 whiskey of 2022 or whatever the heck it was. I don't remember. The one I'm sipping here is Barrel 54. And of course, I'll have a link down below. I mean, right away, you should notice some rich color to that. That's 14 years in Kentucky. Pegs it a little bit darker than 17 years in Scotland. All right, what does the nose say? Oh my gosh. All the chocolate and vanilla tones. This is liquid s'mores. Ooh, nice well-aged oak there. Definitely getting some like 15-year George T. Stagg kind of vibes on this one. Wow, suddenly it's fruity. Suddenly it's toffee. I mean, this is one of those pours that is just so stupidly complex. Oh yeah, okay, so we're leaning very heavy on the chocolate tones for this. When you see people talking about single malt reviews, a big note that will come up a ton is chocolate tones. I'm sure that has something to do with the malting process, but I'm not 100%. On to the taste. You want to talk about a powerhouse of flavor? That's it. All those same chocolate tones are coming in on the palate. I'm getting like a nice espresso vibe here. Salted caramel, pound cake, fig, caraway, nutmeg, cinnamon. My goodness. Finish. That just doesn't quit either. That one is a spectacular whiskey that's going to be hard to beat. And of course, the one we've been working up to, Westward's Milestone Edition 2. This is one I have a full review on, and this is also one of my highest scoring whiskeys ever. This got my coveted 5 out of 5 rating on amongstthewhiskey.com. When you're done with this video, you're definitely going to want to go read that review. We are back in the land of American single malt with this one. This highlights blending mastery. So the team over at Westward has basically had a infinity barrel going on. It's a Solaric cask, so every batch they take a little bit out and they continue to add to it. Miles Monroe has been meticulously crafting this one for the past year. This is only the second time that they've released this, and by golly, it is a great whiskey. Nose time. Yup. God damn. That's some gourmet shit, Jimmy. That is just whiskey perfected. It smells so stupidly good. Oh my gosh. Rum raisin. There's almost a little spiced apple cider thing going on here. Holy moly, plum bundt cake. I am in love with this nose. This is easily the best nose of the 5 glasses that I've explored. Yep, sticking with my guns. That is a 5 out of 5 whiskey right there. Might as well taste though. That is just... That's some thigh-slapping whiskey right there. Oh, yeah. Rum raisin, 4 days. Brown sugar, cherry cobbler. OMG. This tastes perfect. The likes of which we may never see again. This is spectacular whiskey. I adore that whiskey. So delicious. Some great fig, stewed apricot. And really the best part for me is the finish, where just this crystal clear note of apple pie rings out forever. I might never taste a better whiskey than that. Okay, I'm going to run through all 5 of these again real quick and try to give you my power ranking of which ones I liked best. Back in a flash. All right, I'm ready. 5th place is going to be the Jack Daniel's Twice Barreled American Single Malt. Only because it is the lightest in flavor. I think they could crank that knob up to 11 and do something even better than this in the future. I'll be waiting for that day. But for now, this is going to be my 5th place in this lineup. And this lineup is all greats. 4th place, Westward Bottle and Bond Spectacular Pour. In this lineup, it was the biggest, the boldest, the brashest. It made the craziest amount of flavor. Maybe behind the Milestone, but it could use just a little bit of refinement to really become an exceptional whiskey. So for those reasons, this will be my 4th place finish. 3rd place might be a little surprising here. The Scotch is going to be my 3rd place finish. American whiskey fans can rejoice. We are producing whiskey that can compete with the likes of Scotland. While it is a newer category, and I think there will be a lot of growing pains, there are examples already on the market that beat spectacular bottlings of single malt Scotch whiskey. So there you have it, folks. That's going to be third place. Signatory, nice showing. Second for me is going to be the Kentucky Straight Malt. This thing is just a powerhouse of flavor. The introduction of a little bit of corn makes for a very different sipping experience. This is definitely not to be confused with the American single malt category because it is more of a traditional American whiskey mixture of a mash bill. There's corn and malted barley in this, but there is no denying that is one of the best whiskeys of all time. Nice job, Rare Character. You're killing it. But my number one whiskey from this tasting is the Milestone Edition 2 from Westward. Unbelievable quality in this bottle. If you need to convince somebody that they need to be on the American single malt hype train, this is the bottle to show them. This bottle will get anybody interested in whiskey hooked on American single malt. Yes, this is a limited release. Yes, it was a little bit expensive of a bottle, but for me, this is worth every penny if you're somebody that values quality in whiskey over all else. This achieves quality. So there you have it. American single malt is our winner. While this wasn't a ridiculously thorough examination of the nuance between American single malt and single malt Scotch whiskey, I do think it highlights a fantastic trend for the category as a whole. Like I was saying earlier, American single malts are capable of incredible quality, which is an opinion that I didn't have 2 years ago or even last year. I am really excited to see what new American single malts start coming out. And let me know down in the comments which American single malts you want to see. Which producers are making your favorite American single malts? Are there any that I didn't explore here that I should? Because I would love to find them. But that is all I've got for you today here, folks. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my pour of this Milestone Edition 2. I hope this was informative, educational, and fun. If it was, make sure to drop me a like. But until we meet again, keep it amongst the whiskey.